Alright guys, I'm gonna do the best receiving team event today, and I will also announce the winner for my other giveaway event. So there'll be a total of 10 giveaway winners announced at the end of the video, okay? But before reviewing the submissions and also announcing the winners, I just want to talk about the best receiving team first. So let's start off with the first obvious choice, which is going to be SP Kenman. He's basically like a core staple of the receiving team. And then you want to slot in two other characters who have great synergy with him, which is going to be SP Hinata and then also SP Crow. Now then there's also going to be an obvious fourth member in the team as well, which is going to be SP Suki. Now Suki has great deployment bond with Hinata and also Crow, so there's already one benefit there. And then the other thing Suki is also able to provide is that he essentially is going to act as the second blocker for your team by the time Crow rotates to the back, okay? So that's kind of why Suki is also going to be very important here. Now let's talk about the remaining members. For Liberal, this can kind of go down to two routes. You can either go for Nishinoya plus Kageyama. This has the benefit of, first of all, Karasuno School Bond, if you care about that extra 10% power and quick spike attack. Then the other thing, which is going to be more beneficial, is that because of the deployment bond between Hinata and Kageyama, you are actually able to increase the reflex for a team when you actually do receive, okay? So that could be one variation you want to go down. The other variation is going to be Komori plus Sakusa. Komori plus Sakusa. Now this also is very good because there's a deployment bond which actually buff up the receive for your whole team. So basically the way I guess you can look at the two variations, that this one buff up your receive stat, the other one buff up your reflex stat. Now which one is actually a bit more valuable? Personally I think first of all this buff up receive stat is more like a bonus buff, so it's not actually as strong as, you know, just a 20% increase to all of your receives, but still going to be a very good one because a lot of members on the team do have already naturally very high receiving stat. Now the thing with reflex is that with Kenma plus Nishinoya or Komori here, you can already get like a 30 or 40% reflex buff to your whole team. Then you add in the potential that you can also whack on as well. You are likely already looking at, you know, a solid 70 or maybe even 80% reflex, depending on how you build your character. And then certain characters already have natural high reflex from their own kit as well. So that's kind of why reflex also may look like a bit of an overkill, because you can probably already get a crit received vast majority of the time as well. Out of the two, there's also going to be one other consideration, which is that Komori plus Sakusa, this is going to be like a passively permanent on deployment bond as long as your Komori is on, whereas the buff that Kageyama is able to provide actually require his own stacking of his buff, which you can only get either via Nishinoya's deployment bond or you get via the enemy actually landing a critical action. However, the same with this is that when you actually have Kenma plus SP Hinata, you actually debuff the enemy awareness rate, and therefore actually make it harder for the enemy to actually do a crit, and then that could in turn also make your Kageyama not as easily able to stack up his own buff. So that's kind of why out of the two variations, I'm going to lean slightly more towards Komori plus Sakusa combo, purely because I feel like it's a bit more consistency, and also just a permanent straight up receive is going to be a bit more obvious. The reflex when you can vast majority of time already crit on every single receive already, okay? So that's kind of why I'm going down with these two characters. Now that leaves one remaining character available, and to me there are three different choices. You can either go for SP Kunami, or you can go for the new SP Watsuyumi, or you can go with Sugawaru. Now before talking about that, I first of all want to mention about how you want to sub out liberal substitution, because that will actually affect the choices of the third member as well. So if you just take a look at this, ideally you want to avoid your wind spiker to be subbed out because of this deployment bond, and also you probably want to avoid actually subbing out your mid blocker because both Hinata and Kuro prefer to be at the back. And you probably don't want to sub out your Kenma either, purely because you would be giving so much reflex when he is actually on the court. So ideally, whoever your liberal is going to sub out should be this person here, okay? And now let's take a look at the three options. So if you actually put Sugawaru here, even though he is actually able to increase the receive for all of your team, it probably will work out to be about like a 20% increase to all of your receive, which is definitely very good. However, there are two things he's lacking. One, if you actually use the liberal to sub him out, that basically means there will also be one one turn, at least one turn, where Kenma would also be subbed out, which is not ideal. Then the second thing is he doesn't actually have receiving skill himself. So whilst he can buff other people's receiving skill, he doesn't actually have one himself. Whereas the other two options, Iwazumi and also Kunumi, both have receiving skill and can also make liberal substitution a bit easier. So that's kind of why I do feel Sugawara is going to be the worst choice out of the three. Now, in terms of who do you actually want in the slot, do you want Kunami or do you want Iwazumi? Personally, I'm not sure. I can't make up my mind. I think both are great options. If you play Kunami, you have the added advantage of actually getting your Komori on the field because he's going to be your only opposite hitter. So therefore, it's going to be very easy for you to just set your liberal sub to your opposite hitter, and therefore you have very nice receive every single time. However, if you don't actually have this and you put Iwazumi instead, Iwazumi arguably actually have a better receive than Komori. So you can also justify why, if I actually play Iwazumi, I don't even need to set a substitution for my liberal as well. So that's kind of why I feel like this is equally as strong. So I guess it's kind of going to be more down to your personal preference. If Komori is actually on the field, you do have that deployment bomb, and that can potentially make your other back row members to have a bit more consistency when receiving. So if you want to go for that consistency, I think Kunami is probably going to be slightly better. However, if you're talking about one-off best received, then I mean Iwazumi is going to be the clear winner here as well. Okay, so I think like either team build is going to be fine. It's more down to your personal preference. So that's basically going to be, in my opinion, the best receiving team. I am going to skip the rotation for now because I will talk about that when I actually review the submissions. Okay, now let's review of the submissions together. The very first one, you have Kita in, and as good as he may be, he's only an SSR, so your overall team power is going to take a hit, so that's not going to be the best receiving team, obviously. Then the second one, you had the team spot on. It's just a question of rotation. And in fact, there are two other submissions which are very similar to this. So I'll review all three of them at the end. But yeah, basically, this is one of the top three contestants. Then we have this one. Basically, you went for Kageyama plus Nishinoya. But like I said earlier, this is going to be a bit dependent on the enemy crit, which you actually debuffing yourself through SP Kenma. So that's going why I don't feel like this is going to be as consistent than, let's say, if you play Sakusa plus Komori instead. Then this one, very similar, same. So Kageyama plus Nishinoya, in my opinion, is not going to be quite as good as Sakusa plus Komori. You also have Hoshiyumi here, which I feel like is a bit of an interesting choice, but I would probably just went with someone who is a bit better at receiving. Hoshiyumi can probably improve your blocking a tiny bit more. But to be honest, Suki can also be built so that his blocking ultimate cooldown is reduced. So I'm not actually too sure whether it's worth it by putting Hoshiyumi here to kind of essentially sacrifice or receive just to have a slightly stronger block. So that's going to be more source on that one. Then this one, so I was reading through all of your things and I was following them, and I do feel like they kind of make sense up to a point, which is this one, where you say Kunami plus Noya plus Kageyama would be the answer, but has a liberal problem, and then you want to address the other things. But I don't know whether you considered actually subbing out Kunami, which is the way I would have done it. But because you didn't specify that, so I don't know whether you left that out. You then went into the conclusion of subbing out Kageyama instead, which personally, because Kageyama means you're subbing out a setter, and no matter how you play it, basically Kenma would also be subbed out for at least one turn. So that's kind of why I don't feel it's ideal to actually sub out a setter, and I would have subbed out Kunami, but I just couldn't see your logic as to why you ruled that out as one of the options, okay? Then this one basically you went for Sugawara and Nishinoya instead, which is an interesting choice. That's almost like a twist on Kageyama plus Nishinoya. But once again, the problem with Sugawara in this kind of team is just that he doesn't have a receiving skill himself. And whilst, yes, he can buff other people's receive, he is just going to be lacking a bit of receiving ability himself. And also by playing him, you also kind of limit your attacking option by an extra one. Because right now, if you actually take a look, you only have 3 characters capable of actually doing an attack. So you may even run into some awkward situation when you are forced to use a normal spiking skill. So that's kind of why I wouldn't put Sugawara here. Then Gon from the GOAT Gon. This is another one of the top 3 contenders. I'll just review the rotation at the end. Then this one, Oh, it's same kind of thing, right? Kageyama plus Nishinoya instead of Komori and Sakusa. Now, it's quite interesting. You actually play Sakusa here anyway, which, to be honest, now that I think about it, probably Sakusa is actually going to be better in this team over Kunami. However, it's the same kind of thing, right? I would have much rather win Sakusa plus Komori instead for that more consistent buff rather than playing Kageyama, which is a bit more dependent on the enemy critting, which once again, you're debuffing yourself. Then this one, this is another the same team, just need to look at rotation. So that's another one of the top three contenders. Then for this one, so this is the first submission which I saw with Okawa. The main thing with this is that I don't even know whether I can call this a receive team anymore because, well, I mean, first of all, you're using Okawa instead of SP Kemba. I know the receiving capability is not decided by the set anymore, but if you actually take a look at this team, there are only like two, actually, I guess three characters who are really good at receiving. Kunami is a bit more like, I mean, he has a receiving skill, but he's not like a dedicated receiver. So I just find like this may be a good team, but I just wouldn't classify it as a receiving team, unfortunately. Um, so that's that one. Then for this one, oh, so for this one, I think there's a mistake you made in terms of the liberal rotation, which is that you said you want to sub out Aone. However, because the on the very first time Aone will be serving, so what's actually going to happen is that your Hinata will be subbed out, and the way liberal sub is going to work after position limit update is that it will be keeping on going on this until that person rotated to front. So even after one rotation, your Aone is in a spot where he's no longer serving. Unfortunately, Hinata is still going to be one that's sub out by the liberal. So that's kind of why this team is not going to work in terms of the liberal side setting. Then for this one, you have Konkanagawa instead of someone like Kunami or Iwazumi, which is interesting. But to me, once again, if we're talking about the context of the best receiving team, you want your buff to go into receive, whereas Konkanagawa is kind of buffing your block. And the thing is, receive and block, they're kind of like the almost two polar opposite in the sense that if you already managed to do a successful block, you wouldn't even need to receive. Whereas, for example, if your block is actually a bit weak, it doesn't matter too much as long as you have a strong receive. So that's kind of why I found it a bit counterintuitive to why you would be increasing the block when vast majority of the time your buff should be going towards the receiving end instead. And the two, like I said, they actually contradict with each other ever so slightly. So that's kind of why I don't feel like Kongan is the best or the most optimal choice here either. Then for this one, okay, so for this one, you also have Okawa, but this time it's facing towards Hinata, and that allows you to still have SP Kenma. The problem with this is that I don't really think Okawa is adding too much value here, because if you actually think about it, the strongest thing Okawa is able to provide is basically crit rate to your whole team, but Suki already have natural high crit rate, Iwazumi already have not high natural crit rate, so it doesn't really matter for them. And then in terms of the one who is opposite Okawa is able to basically increase all of their offensive stats. But then if we actually take a look at the content of Hinata kind of first of all, like quick attack stats, that's kind of the number one thing Hinata use. However, Okawa being a power setter, he's not gonna have very high quick attack stats himself. The number two thing is gonna be awareness, but Hinata already can get 100% awareness when someone do a critical receive, so he doesn't really need this from Okawa either. Then if we talk about crit damage, so strength, the thing is Hinata already get like 200% crit damage increase from his skill resonance 4, so he doesn't really crit damage too much either. Any crit damage Okawa is going to give is going to be saturated as well. So actually, if you actually go around all of the stats Okawa is able to provide, the only really big difference maker is actually going to be attack technique, but I think that's actually limited. I think it's up to like only 10 or maybe 15% increase in attack technique. So that's kind of why, yes, he can buff up Hinata by quite a bit, but a lot of the stats he's buffing up is either going to be saturated or not that useful to Hinata anyway. So that's kind of why I feel like the value for Okawa is not going to be very high in this kind of teams. Then for this one, basically you went for Sugawara as this position rather than someone like Konami. But it's the same thing I repeated earlier. You are basically lacking one receiving skill, one receiving label. So even though Sugawara is able to give some passive buff, your extra receiving label can also give some extra buff when you counter enemy speciality, right? And then you're also missing one other attacking option, which may or may not be needed. But that it's nice to have that flexibility if you do actually have Kunami, because I don't really feel like Sugawara, the passive buff from Sugawara is able to justify the lack of a receive skill and also an extra force spike. So then we move on to this one. Basically, it's the same thing as I said before. You're missing out Kenma, so it might be a very good team. I just don't see it as a receiving team, to be honest. Also, the role of Kageyama here is also a bit of an interesting one. But I guess you're trying to increase your reflex, but if you're trying to increase your reflex, you might as well just put Kenma here instead of Kageyama. Then for this one, so yeah, same thing. You put Okawa in over Kenma, so it might be a very good team. I just don't really classify this as a receive team when your only receiver is kind of just like 3 person. So then we move on to this one. We have, let me just check, what do we have here? So you have the combo of those four. Oh, so basically you went for Sugawara and Nishinoya over Sakusa plus Komori, and then you have Iwata Yumi for the last spot. Yeah, so same thing. Sugawara, I don't feel like Sugawara, the value of Sugawara is going to be as high, especially if you actually change this to Sakusa plus Komori. The passive buff from deployment bomb between Sakusa and Komori is already more or less the same as what Sugawara is able to offer. And then on top of that, you actually have one very good receive and one extra spike from Sakusa as well. So that's kind of why I also don't say this is the most optimized team for receive. Then for this one, okay, so basically you use Iwazu Yumi over Suki. Now this would make your receiver actually very, very strong, but the thing is you're actually missing a second blocker. So as soon as Kuro moved to this position, which to be honest, I feel like only 3 rotations in, that's quite common in a lot of matches, then you basically end up with no blockers at all. So that's kind of why I don't feel like this is ideal either. Then for this one, same thing, you have all cover opposite Hinata, but a lot of the buff all cover is able to provide to Hinata. It's not actually going to be that important, so that's not ideal either. Then this is the same thing, all cover opposite Hinata. So yeah, so that's all of the submissions. And like I said, there are 3 which are essentially the same as my team. Now the team is exactly the same, so the only thing is going to be rotation. Now out of the all of the rotations that you need to consider here, I think the number 1 most important thing is that Suki, because he doesn't have a receiving skill, you want him to be rotated to the front as soon as possible. So that's kind of why the submission here, because Suki is kind of in the middle back row, you are missing one turn where he could basically be replaced by a stronger receiver. So that's kind of why I'm going to rule out this submission. Now the winner is going to be decided off between those 2, and to be honest, it's actually very, very similar. You basically all have the same position for Hinata, Suki, and Kenma. The only difference is kind of the first 3 rotation. Now between Sakusa and also Kuro and also Kunami, which way round do you want it? So first of all, Kunami and Sakusa, the 2 of them are very similar in my opinion. I don't really think it really matters too much which one get rotated first out of the 2. However, the thing with Kuro is that because he, out of all of the ones available out of those 3, he is probably the one having the biggest advantage by staying on the front row a bit longer, because all of 3 of them can receive, right? So it doesn't really matter about whether you can improve your back row. But in terms of improving your front row, it's going to be slightly better if your Kuro can basically be on the front row for a bit longer. So that's kind of out of 2 submission. I am going to pick this one purely because of the rotation. You basically allow Kuro to stay on the front for 1 extra turn, okay? So yeah, so the winner for this week's receiving team is going to go to Nicholas D. Okay, now let me announce the winner for the other events, starting off with the base showroom one. So first of all, I will be making this channel public so you guys can see off the submission afterwards as well. There were loads of great submissions, so thank you everyone for participating. I can see you guys put in loads of effort into decorating even some of the very minor detail, so kudos to you all. Now, unfortunately, I can only pick 3 winners, so even though there are loads of good submissions, I kind of just went through all of them and picked 3, which I feel like is the best, both aesthetically and also whether or not it's useful or not. So aesthetically, what kind of means like I know some people probably don't have enough funding to buy furniture for every single room. But unfortunately, to be fair to all of the other people who have purchased those decorations, right? So I kind of are gonna mark down people for like empty spaces. And then in terms of practical or not, basically, for example, this is a good example. I mean, it looks very good with like 6 different volleyball courts. I just question whether or not you actually have enough players to actually make the use out of those 6 volleyball courts. So, if this is in real life, I don't know, it's a bit wasteful. So that's kind of what I mean by whether or not it's realistic or practical or not. Oh, this one is also quite funny. So basically, I was reading the description, and one of them says somewhat private changing area. That I went on to see the video, and then I noticed this is a private changing area. And yeah, it's not private. This is completely see-through, man. That's not gonna stop anyone from peeking. So yeah, so that's kind of the small minor details I was looking at. But anyway, I picked 3 different winners in the end. So who are gonna be the 3 winners? So number one is gonna be you. Whatever your name is, I'll be reaching out afterwards. But I quite like the way you have decorated outside area. You basically have the kind of that store festival theme. I know it's one of the same in game, but you were the only one who put this kind of theme out, which I thought is quite interesting. I also do like kind of like the footpaths leading into the house as well. It almost make it feel like your base is kind of in a quite nice community, that kind of thing. So I do quite like this one. Then let me see. I pinged all of this. This is the other one. Oh, this is the very first one. So I really like this one. I think you probably have the best internal decoration. So Kachu, I'll be reaching out to you as well as one of the winners. But the bit I like the most is first of all, you actually use quite a lot of those kind of shelf kind of things, room separated, which is quite nice. I know, I guess in real life there technically should be walls, but at least from like aesthetic point of view, when we are looking at the base, it doesn't seem like there are walls in between them. So using those as kind of room separator, I really like that. And also I really like some of the small detail you put. Like for example, this one is just 6 cushion in front of TV, but obviously you position them very well to make it very nice aesthetically. Okay, so that's kind of why I also picked you as one of the winners. And then the last winner I picked was the one with also screenshots. Oh yeah, so this one. So I mean, it's a bunch of screenshots, so it's not enough for me to see the whole thing. But one thing I really like, and this is probably the one I like the most out of all the submissions, even though it's just one photo. But look at this. I mean, this is a really cool. You still have that volleyball court. It's just one of them, so I feel like it's somewhat practical if this is actually someone's house. But then you have all the full pass alongside with it. You have all the chairs for anyone who's there to watch. It's you can almost like keep scores like this as well. Then you have a bit of slide for other kids to play around on the side. I just feel like this is a really nicely decorated outside area. This is probably my favorite outside area, and in fact probably the most favorite aspect out of all the submissions so far. But yeah, so that's kind of why I'm gonna pick you as a winner as well. Okay, Lucky. I'll be reaching out to you right afterwards as well. So that's basically the 3 winners for the base showroom. And then for the exercise event, I have already went through all of them as well. So the 3 winners are gonna be Yes, HCX Winchester, and also Park 1G. And basically just show you guys the ones they have. 115 diamonds. This is crazy, man. That was some insane luck. 110 as well. And this one was 105. So they're all very high. I think the highest I have ever gotten was 105 as well, or maybe 110. But I have only reached more than 100 twice ever since playing this game. So I know this are definitely some insane luck required, and also probably you guys carefully planned off your dice rolls and off your cards, etc. So yeah, congrats to you guys. You are the 3 winners for this event. So I will also be reaching out to you guys to get your details. Okay, now for the very last event, this was just to submit a screenshot and I'll pick 3 random winners. So I saw 40 submissions here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just simply number them. So the very first one on the top is going to be number 1. The very last one is going to be number 40. And then I will just simply do random number generator 3 times, okay? So first winner is going to be number 23. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, so I am gonna pin you this just so that I know who are the winners, and I'll reach out after. Ooh, inspired by MSBY Black Jackals. Nice, cool. So that's random number generator 1. Number 2 is gonna be 33. Okay, I'll count. Actually no, I'll just count from here. So this is 23. So 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Okay, Gabriel. So I'll ping you as well. And then the last winner is gonna be 26. Okay, wait. So this was 33. No wait. Let me do it from 23. It's easier. So the Black Jackal 23. So that's 23, 24, 25, 26. Okay, so you are going to be winner number 3. Okay, so congrats to you guys. I'll be reaching out to all of you guys for your details so that I can pass to Garina. Now, just a reminder that there is the poll for voting for the best SP character. I believe that's still open. So if you want to participate in that event, I mean, obviously you can't submit anything now, but if you want to vote for who has the coolest design, etc., then do go ahead and check that out. It's a pretty fun event. There were lots of great creations as well. Okay. But yeah, that's it for this video. See you guys next time.